Despite previous denials by WWE, the lawyer for former Executive Vice President of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis has revealed that WWE indeed was aware of the assault allegations made by former WWE star Ashley Massaro prior to her tragic passing in 2019. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling and the fallout from the Bombshell lawsuit and the allegations made against former WWE and TKO Executive Chairman Vince McMahon, the former Executive Vice President of Talent Relations John Laurinaitis, as well as the company WWE as a whole by a former WWE employee continue to, explode onto the not only pro wrestling scene but also the mainstream media scene. More details now are coming out regarding prior allegations and prior controversies in WWE, particularly when it relates to former WWE superstar Ashley Massaro, who tragically passed away in 2019. Now, just for full transparency here, this article that's been reported by Vice News is incredibly graphic and contains quite a few trigger warnings. So if you wish to be spared that, feel free to skip ahead. Feel free to skip to another video. We are going to go into quite a lot of detail when it comes to the allegations made in this article and the really explicit nature in which Vice has reported this. So, of course, if you do wish to skip ahead, feel free. Once again, trigger warning, viewer discretion is advised. A lot of the content in this video and in this article is quite explicit. Once again, this is a story that comes from Vice News. It's written by Tim Marchman, and it really regards the allegations made by former WWE superstar Ashley Massaro. These allegations have been known for quite some time, but really the bombshell aspect of this is that for the first time, a former executive that worked in WWE at the time of these allegations admits that WWE management was aware of the allegations despite previously denials from WWE that they were even aware of such an event even happening. So, of course, Vince McMahon, the former TKO executive chairman, stands accused of covering up an alleged sexual assault of a WWE wrestler who later died by apparent suicide at a military base in Kuwait and of sexually harassing her, according to legal documents and people who knew her. John Laurinaitis, a former WWE executive and McMahon's co-defendant in an explosive civil sex trafficking lawsuit, is also implicated. His lawyer, though, objected to the use of the term cover-up, but confirmed that Laurinaitis knew about the allegations and said, quote, most upper-level management, end quote, did, contradicting WWE's claim that executives were never made aware of them. Now, in a sworn affidavit her lawyer released in 2019 after her death, former WWE wrestler Ashley Massaro said that she was injected with a paralyzing drug and sexually assaulted by someone representing himself as a U.S. Army doctor while on tour with WWE in Kuwait in 2006. Massaro also said that top executives at the company, including McMahon and Laurinaitis, told her not to talk about the incident and agreed to not talk about it themselves, in a part to preserve the company's relationship with the military. Quote, he told me not to let one bad experience ruin the good work they were doing, Massaro said of McMahon in the affidavit. Vice News is reporting for the first time that the Naval Criminal Intelligence Service opened an investigation into Massaro's allegations in June 2019. That investigation was closed in January 2020, according to an NCIS spokesperson. Further information, they said, could not be immediately released as it would need to be obtained under the Freedom of Information Act. In the years since the affidavit was released, new information had come to light to corroborate some of Massaro's claims and cast doubt on WWE's subsequent denial, even before the statement from Laurinaitis' lawyer. Paul London, a former WWE wrestler who dated Massaro when they were both with the company, has also since said that Massaro herself was a victim of McMahon's sexual misconduct. The allegations appear in a new light following the filing of a civil lawsuit accusing McMahon and Laurinaitis of sexually assaulting a WWE employee and McMahon of covering it up by strong-arming her into signing a non-disclosure agreement. Both have denied the allegations. Quote, "I'm not surprised by any of it," London said of the recent claims against McMahon on a podcast released last week. He compared WWE to other cults previously that have been in the news regarding similar kind of allegations. Quote, "Any allegations that Mr. Laurinaitis helped cover up an alleged sexual assault allegation is an outright lie," wrote Laurinaitis' lawyer, Edward Brennan, in response to questions about Massaro's allegations. Quote, "Johnny, like most upper-level management, at some time became aware of the allegations and ensured all proper WWE protocols were followed, including privacy for the alleged victim. We object to the use of the term cover-up, as no such plan or plot ever took place to hide or assist the alleged assault." A spokesperson for TKO, of course WWE's parent company, declined to comment, and a lawyer said to represent McMahon did not respond to requests for comment. Neither McMahon nor Laurinaitis is now associated with WWE, of course, with Vince McMahon resigning as the chairman of TKO the day after the sex trafficking lawsuit was filed. Massaro's road to WWE superstardom was far from traditional, and she said in her affidavit, rife with mistreatment from the start. In 2005, she was cast in the Diva Search, a reality competition of sorts that aired as part of the company's flagship Monday Night Raw program. As the winner of the competition, Massaro received a WWE contract and, despite being, she would later say, completely untrained, immediately joined the Monday Night Raw roster as a wrestler. Of course, when it comes to being a pro wrestler and professional wrestling, yes, it is scripted, yes, the outcome is predetermined, but even the basic maneuvers require very extensive and intense training, of which Massaro claims she didn't have. Over the next 3 years, she performed as a wrestler and a valet, someone who accompanies wrestlers to the ring, and represented the WWE brand as a Survivor contestant and a Playboy cover model before being released in 2008. In 2016, Massaro joined a lawsuit brought by a number of former wrestlers against McMahon and WWE, seeking damages related to the effects of traumatic brain injuries they said they suffered while wrestling. According to a filing in the suit, Massaro said that she had been sexually assaulted in Kuwait and that Ferdinand Rios, a WWE doctor, had reported the incident to, quote, WWE executives who soon thereafter met with Massaro to apologize for their negligence but persuaded her that it would be best not to report it to the appropriate authorities, end quote. In a filing the next month, WWE called the claim a, quote, stale and baseless allegation, end quote, and denied Massaro had ever reported the sexual assault to anyone affiliated with WWE, saying she had been heard telling others that the doctor had, quote, done an inappropriate pelvic exam, end quote. Now, obviously, at the time, things like this were in the headlines when it regards to other significant, assaults in sport and things of that nature, so even an inappropriate pelvic exam could be considered as a sexual assault anyway. Now, a judge dismissed the case in 2018, after which plaintiff's lawyer Konstantin Kyrios, whom the judge had sanctioned and ordered to pay WWE's fees, filed the first in an ongoing series of appeals. Asked for comment, Kyrios provided a link showing he had petitioned the Supreme Court to hear an appeal. It has previously declined to do so, and noted that Massaro's affidavit was made under oath to a federal judge. The matter sat there until May 2019 when Massaro died. While authorities declined to publicly state the cause of death, it was reported, and her survivors have not disputed, that it was by suicide. Subsequently, Kyrios published in full the sworn affidavit Massaro had signed in November 2017, in which she detailed the allegations about her assault and WWE's response. It can be read in full online. In the affidavit, Massaro describes the events that she says took place on a 2006 WWE tour, the year is incorrectly given as 2007 in the document, of US military facilities in Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, and Kuwait, on which she and several other performers and staffers took part. None could be reached for comment, according to Vice. Suffering from dehydration, the statement says, she was taken to a military base, where she was given an IV and left alone. After a couple of hours, a man representing himself as an army doctor and a woman in fatigues, she said, appeared, administered another IV and took her into another room. Massaro, according to a source with knowledge, was taken to Ali Al Salam Air Base in Kuwait, where the clinic would have been staffed by Navy rather than Army personnel. This would explain why NCIS handled the case, even though Massaro said the attacker purported to be an Army doctor. Quote, the woman guarded the door, the statement says, while the man proceeded to inject me with a drug that caused me to be unable to move my body or to scream. The man then proceeded to violently assault me and sodomize me. I was completely helpless to defend myself against this attack, as the drug he injected rendered me temporarily paralyzed. Despite being unable to control my movements, I remained fully conscious for every second of the attack, end quote. Eventually, the statement says, a WWE staffer began banging on the door. The man and woman covered her with a quilt and left the room, and the staffer carried her away and brought her back to her hotel room. The sequence of events given in the statement, including Massaro falling ill, going for medical attention, and then being brought back to the hotel, is broadly consistent with the one described in a 2006 blog post published on WWE's website by Jimmy Hart, one of the performers on the tour. Masaro, the statement says, was not in the position to have a kit taken of her assault and did not report the incident to authorities. She told fellow performers about what had happened, but told them not to report it to anyone. After she returned to the US, though, Ferdinand Rios, the WWE doctor, questioned her about the incident. She agreed to tell him what had happened as long as he didn't tell anyone else. Subsequently, though, the statement says he informed McMahon, and she was summoned to a meeting with McMahon, Laurinaitis, WWE production chief Kevin Dunn, and other men she didn't recognize but believed to be company executives or lawyers. Dunn, who left WWE last month after more than 40 years of serving as one of McMahon's loyal right-hand men, could not be reached for comment. A spokesperson for TKO did not provide contact information to Vice for a representative for Dunn when asked. Vince, the statement reads, led the meeting with these men and asked me to recount what happened in Kuwait. Then he said it was not in the best interest of the WWE for me to make the information about my attack public. I was still completely traumatized at that point, and I just agreed. It was clear that there had already been a conversation and that they had reached a decision on their own prior to consulting with me, as this was not a debate but rather Vince instructing me to keep this confidential. Vince did at least apologize for what I went through, but then stressed that if I disclosed this instance, that it would ruin the relationship between the WWE and the US military. He told me to not let one bad experience ruin the good work they were doing, end quote. In a statement issued after the publication of the affidavit, WWE denied its claims. Quote, at no time was Vince McMahon or the management of WWE ever informed by Ashley Massaro or anybody else that she had been sexually assaulted, drugged, or sodomized by a military doctor with a nurse standing guard while on Goodwill tour in 2007 to US military bases in Kuwait, read the statement. It continues by saying, quote, at no time was there ever a meeting with Vince McMahon, Kevin Dunn, John Laurinaitis, or other company executives in which she told them of such a claim and was instructed to keep it quiet, end quote. According to what Laurinaitis says, which is corroborated by an interview given last fall by Rios, the doctor that statement was not true. A TKO spokesperson declined to comment on whether WWE stands by its denial. Obviously, once again, this is the latest in a line of bombshell and very disturbing and worrying claims and allegations against WWE, Vince McMahon, and John Laurinaitis. Now, obviously, some would consider a paradox of pro wrestling is that for all the secrecy surrounding its inner workings, there is a remarkable amount of media in which insiders feel freely discuss them. An entire ecosystem of podcasts, streams, channels like this, where current and former performers discuss how things actually work, what people are like actually behind the scenes, and what they saw during their careers. As part of that ecosystem, Masaro's story has been kept alive in the years since her death by wrestling fans and media, and also by people who knew her personally. On one of these podcasts, Cafe de Rennes, hosted by former WWE wrestler Rene Dupree, Paul London discussed Massaro last year. London and Massaro were linked together both on and off screen in her time with WWE, as the two dated, and she also served as his valet. At the time the podcast was recorded, McMahon had recently returned to WWE after resigning in the wake of the Wall Street Journal reporting about secret non-disclosure agreements he'd signed and allegations of sexual misconduct and abuse against him. Quote, I do remember specifically many times when she would be crying to me because Vince was propositioning her to fly on the jet with them, he said. Kevin Dunn, Bucktooth Bucky, would then be telling her that she has to fly on the jet with them, or every now and then they would always put the divas up at the TV hotel or whatever. McMahon would be knocking on her door and trying to get her to answer. I'm shocked this Vince stuff is just coming out now. London described WWE as an onion of destitution in another interview on the same podcast just over a week ago. It's really disgusting. It's a really disgusting onion just full of layers and layers and layers. As you say, what's known in the wrestling business is believe none of what you hear and half of what you see. So there's always that weighing on one thing. But of course, I'm going to believe my girlfriend at the time, especially when I can see her physically shaken and disturbed. She was a good actress, but she wasn't that good of an actress. A representative for London did not respond to an email. A TKO spokesperson specifically declined to comment on London's implication that McMahon had harassed or coerced Massaro. Kyrgios, Massaro's lawyer, suggested that her career ended, at least in part, because she rejected McMahon's advances on the Banfield podcast this week. Last September, Audible released a podcast called Ashley vs. WWE, in which people who knew Massaro offered new corroboration of claims made in the affidavit. Some of this was less specific, such as her cousin saying she'd intimated that someone had attempted to sexually assault her, her best friend saying Massaro had told her that a doctor did something to her and that it was swept under the rug, and an unnamed source saying Massaro had told them that she'd been sexually assaulted and urged by WWE to keep it quiet. More specific new information reported by the podcast, though, contradicts WWE's past denials. Reporter Isabel Thompson talked to London, who described Massaro as feeling trapped, frightened, and preyed upon when McMahon and Dunn would pressure her to fly on the company jet, or when McMahon would come knocking on her hotel door at night. He said that she had told him she was assaulted after returning from Kuwait, and that she had met with WWE executives who told her not to say anything about it. Thompson also reached Ferdinand Rios, the WWE doctor whom Massaro told about the assault and whom she said reported it to McMahon, according to the affidavit. Rios, who did not return a message left with his office, confirmed to Thompson that while the details are a bit unclear in his memory due to the passage of time, he does remember that Massaro told him about the assault after returning to the US from Kuwait. Quote, "I spoke with her and she told me a little bit about it," he said. He further said that this was fairly widely known within the WWE at the time. Quote, "Those that went would tell those that didn't go that this happened," he said. While he said he does believe Massaro's story, his recollection differs from what's recounted in the affidavit in one key particular. While she stated that he told McMahon about the incident, he remembers that it was common knowledge and the subject of gossip, and that he approached Laurinaitis about it, only to find out he was already aware. Quote, "He already knew, and no one wanted to give me any further details about it," said Rios. "I had nothing to do with it." They said. So it was just sort of a shock, when you're restricted from saying anything else, end quote. At some point, Johnny heard about the allegations in general, i.e. that Miss Massaro claimed that she had been assaulted in Kuwait, wrote Brennan, Laurinaitis' lawyer, in an email. As to when McMahon found out about the allegations, Johnny has no idea to when or whether. Quote, "She was extremely special," London said of Massaro, speaking of her to Thompson. "I felt extremely fortunate to be in her life and to have her in my life." Once again, certainly a harrowing read and certainly some harrowing allegations. If we get any more information on this and the development of this story and these round of allegations, we'll let you know in a future video.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.